Juliet Eilperin. I'm the national environmental reporter for the Washington Post and the author of Demon Fish: Travels Through the Hidden World of Sharks. I think it's very important for journalists to remain independent and objective in what they're doing. And I focus on essentially what are actions and policies that are happening and what are their real-world implications. Then it empowers readers to really take action if they choose to or not. That's their decision. And what my role is to simply shed light on some of the critical policy issues of our day. I think it's important to note that essentially when I'm writing about the predicament that sharks are facing today in my book, I'm rooting it in the facts, and I'm rooting it in my experience traveling the world, talking to people, seeing what's going on the ground. It's really, in many ways, I think, the most powerful voices in Demon Fish it's not mine. It's really the voice of whether it's a shark caller in Papua New Guinea or someone who's making a living now doing whale watching in Isla Holbox. These are the men and women who are actually closest to the sea and connected to the sharks that I'm looking at. Sharks, partially because they're so globally distributed and because they're so ancient, really tell the story of the ocean, both what it was, what it is now, and what it could be, in a way that few other species can do. I think there's no question that reporters need to get in the water if they're going to understand the sea. It's really true, and it is a challenge, but particularly because when you're talking about some of the most far-flung places that have really critical issues that need to be written about, and it costs money to go there, and time, and both of those things are pretty scarce nowadays. But there's really just no substitute for being in the ocean, being close to it, and both seeing it for yourself, and also talking to the people who are there most often and whose lives depend upon it. And I think for all those reasons, it's not the kind of thing you can just cover from your desk. I think when I look at where we're at in terms of seafood sustainability, there's no question that we've made a significant amount of progress in the sense that people think about this issue in a way that they really didn't even think about it 10 years ago. I think the discussion that we're having is certainly a much more sophisticated one, and if you look at, for example, the number of retailers that have made seafood commitments just in the last few years, there's no question that there's a greater amount of accountability that we have when it comes to our seafood compared to 5 or 10 years ago. We're far from, say, mission accomplished when it comes to being able to provide sustainable seafood that, a broad number of people can eat on a regular basis and feel confident about. I think there are a number of players that come into the picture when you're looking at sustainable seafood. So you're looking at everything from the scientists that are going to evaluate what kind of practices are used to take out fish and how many are there, as well as the retailers who are buying it, the consumers who are eating it. There really are a number of different points along the way where seafood is being judged and evaluated, and that's part of the complexity that you get when you look at this issue. So that's why it's always helpful to kind of get a sense of what are some of the broader fisheries issues that we're facing, because in many ways that might help them make some of those decisions rather than relying on one certification system or one guide to determine their choices. Sustainability, particularly when you're talking about the oceans, is actually in the process of being redefined right now, I would say. For a long time, we thought about it as the maximum amount of fish and other things we could take out of the sea and have it reproduce over time. And I think what's really interesting is that at this point, scientists are broadening that definition, and sustainability is more about how do you keep the ocean as an ecosystem functioning. I think it's really about the long-term survival of the ocean and the creatures that depend on it, as well as the demands, satisfying the demands of people around the globe.
you.